Welcome, true crime lovers. This is Underage and Full of Rage. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Underage and Full of Rage, the podcast where the convicted are minors and their crimes are anything but. I am your host, Becky, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Adam.
Hello.
All right, and today we're just going to jump into it. Our story starts our story is in 1993. Hillary Norskog is a 13-year-old girl living in Chicago, attending Palos South Junior High School and preparing to leave 8th grade behind her and looking forward to branching out and establishing herself as a freshman in high school. Hillary was described as innocent and shy, but really coming into her own and growing her own confidence. And her one friend said that she didn't start talking until 7th grade, and by 8th grade she was a motor mouth. So this just shows her social development and how she really just started to be comfortable with who she was. She also started to develop physically as well, with another friend stating how pretty she had become and how she was growing in her popularity. So with this popularity and beauty came attention and an ability to start, getting in with different crowds, as one naturally does as they start to, I feel like as you get older in school, you start to kind of like branch out and meet new friends, and you're not just with like that core group that you had in elementary school.
Yeah, you're exposed to more people too.
Right, because you're in like different classes a lot, you're changing stuff throughout the day. So she just started getting in with different crowds. And one crowd in particular was a group of older kids who were getting ready to go into their senior year of that same high school Hillary would be attending as a freshman come that new school year. So although this group considered themselves to be quote unquote stoners, and they were more inclined to delve into, the drinking and doing drugs, typical, I feel like, high school bullshit. Hillary still maintained her kid-like innocence, I guess you could say. She was still very much a tween. I mean, she was 13, but to me, I don't know, I feel like it's changed what tween means. Like, technically, I don't consider 13 a teenager.
I feel like it was different in 1993.
Yeah, because in the 90s, tween was pretty much 11 to 13. I feel like you didn't hit teenager until 14. Like 11 to 13 was a tween era, I personally think.
I gotcha.
It was like the end of elementary school, middle school, you were a tween. And then once you I don't know. No,
I don't know. 13, I feel like
13's teenager to you. 13 isn't a teenager. For some reason, I know it's supposed to be an in between time.
Yeah,
but
it's like
But 10. Yeah. So to you, it's like 10 to 12.
Yeah, or like 11 and 12.
Okay.
10, I feel like 10's like
still young.
Yeah, like
okay.
I feel like 11, 12.
Okay.
But again, I feel like everything's different in 93.
That is true. Yes, that is true. So, tween, early teenager, whatever you want to go with. She was definitely, she had a social life, and it was filled with many notes back and forth to friends describing, the girl she didn't like, the crushes she had, and the typical self-created codes girls establish, and, the usage of different nicknames, so God forbid someone finds it. This honestly takes me back, and I resonate with this so much. I don't think you probably do as much.
I can't say I do.
But in my mind, when I was reading about her, I was just like, oh, to be 13 again. It just like, and it's such a 90s girl. Like, oh my God, I can, like, you've seen the notebooks that me and my friends had that we would pass back and forth, like 100% relate. And it just brought me back to such a happier, simpler time. So the more the more she surrounded herself with this new crowd, the more she began, expanding her horizons. And like every kid trying to discover who they are, she allowed herself to have new experiences and was, opening to trying new things. So with this, came strong concern from old friends who, have known Hillary and didn't condone this new crowd so much. So she was gradually becoming more immersed in, and I feel like her friends who've known her probably since like 2nd grade can't help but be a little concerned because there are behavioral changes. And, Hillary didn't see anything wrong with what she was doing, which I think is normal because she's at the age when finding oneself through new experiences can become a main focus, whether the kid realizes it or not. It's simply just a natural progression of life, and it's actually just a normal part of development. So, amongst this group, though, of friends was one kid that everyone was right to have concerns about. Although in the moment the signs would not be as clear as they were when thinking retrospectively. But honestly, isn't that how it usually goes? It's always, hindsight 2020 type situation.
Yeah.
So let's get into Stephen File. He had recently turned 17. He also lived in Chicago and would be attending the same high school as Hillary in the fall. He was one of 3 children. In fact, he was the middle child with an older brother and a younger sister. His parents were very loving and supportive of their children, maybe to a default, and you will see what I mean by this statement later on. But Stephen's family was also very well off, and as kids, his siblings and him got to enjoy the many luxuries of life that a lot of kids could only dream of. They lived on 1.5 acres in a very nice ranch house in Palos. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think I am though. Palos Park. Palos, Palace Park, which it is an affluent suburb of Chicago. And people's perception of Stephen was that he came from money, had a spoiled upbringing, drank, did drugs, viewed girls as disposable, and was a thrill seeker who was very impulsive. And I personally feel like we all knew kids like this who were attention-seeking and obnoxious, but hey, they had an awesome party house, so you often overlook the shitty and annoying behavior they displayed.
Absolutely. That is a definite.
Right? Okay, I'm not alone in that one. That makes me feel better. Because as I was reading about him, I was like, I could think of a couple of people.
That's like Office Space. Everybody can relate in
right.
some way, shape, or form.
So Stephen's house, of course, was the hangout house. His friends said that his parents were never home, and even when they were always in the other wing of the house and never came over to Stephen's side. So, I mean, that just paints that picture.
His wing.
Yeah. So his friends also said that his parents would let him get away with everything. So safe to say, no discipline or consequences for any of his actions. This lack of rules gave Stephen the sense he could pretty much do whatever he wanted and get away with it. And as he progressed in high school, he continued down a path that most parents would consider a little destructive. For instance, he started hanging out with kids who would often ditch school, smoke pot, drink alcohol, and occasionally they did LSD. Stephen, however, began using drugs more frequently than his friends, with witnesses stating they watched him take 5 hits of acid while in school, and then another time him and his buddy were so wasted and high that they were driving up and down like a back street, is from what I gathered when I was reading about it, at 80 miles per hour with each other clinging to the hood. Which, personally, I feel like that's just dumb teenage shit.
Yeah, that just seems like stupid kids doing stupid shit.
Yeah, and I feel like kids do way more stupid shit than that.
Now they definitely do way dumber shit.
Now they do it on the highway, not a back street.
Put it on the fucking internet.
Exactly. So family, friends, and even teachers who knew Stephen said that he was a troubled kid with behavioral issues that easily dated back to 10 years. So based off of this, he must have started showing behavioral issues around 6 or 7. And isn't that like 1st or 2nd grade?
I'm terrible with that. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I know it's really young though.
Yeah, that's definitely young to be displaying that type of behavior. So so even with this knowledge, a lot of people said that they didn't suspect he would go on to commit such horrendous acts. And one friend even stated that he did some nutty shit, but they knew kids who had done a lot worse, and they didn't go on to commit anything remotely close to what Stephen ends up doing. So, I mean, that's also another thing. Again, it's the retrospect. It's red flags, but at the same time, there are so many people that do such crazy, stupid shit, and then they go on to, like, work on Wall Street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So... And then there's those people that are quiet and live, like, are studious, and then they're the ones that snap. So you can't really tell.
Never known. He was such a quiet neighbor.
It's always the ones you don't suspect. So let's talk about the night that changed Marcia Norskog's life forever. And Marcia is Hillary's mom. So on July 14th, 1993, Hillary made plans to go out and and she tells her mom that she will probably just end up staying over at her friend's house, which was totally fine with Marcia. So she had no reason to say no. Hillary was a good kid she could trust, so why not? The following morning, though, Marcia called over to the friend's house that Hillary was supposed to be staying at and asked if Hillary was ready to be picked up. And at that moment is when she finds out that Hillary didn't spend the night there and that she left the party with a kid named Steven. From here, she gets contact information for the Files house and proceeds to speak with Steven, who tells her that he dropped Hillary off at home and doesn't know where she went after that. Marcia said that when she was asking him questions, he was responding with one-word answers and couldn't really get him to give any type of detail of anything. After hanging up with him, Marcia continues trying to locate her daughter, and at some point, she calls Steven back, hoping to just speak with him one more time about what exactly happened when he dropped Hillary off. Only this time, Marcia found herself speaking with Steven's mom, who rudely told her that Steven couldn't talk because he was sleeping, and then proceeded to tell Marcia that she would have to call the cops if Marcia kept harassing her son. So it's at this point that Marcia was finally like, obviously I'm paraphrasing here, fuck this shit, fuck this lady and her stupid suspicious as fuck son, and called the cops to report Hillary missing. She was definitely a lot nicer about it, but that's essentially what I got from it. So, as the cops questioned people, they came to Steven, and when they came to Steven in the questioning process, I don't know if that just made that clear, and when they questioned him, they also ended up searching his car, where they found what looked like to be blood, even though Steven claimed it was Kool-Aid he had spilled, so, yeah, okay. Because those look the same.
Because that's viable. You couldn't have said anything else. You had to go, fuck, oh my god.
So they took samples of the red spots and, they sent it to the lab. And since they didn't have anything to hold him on, the police had to let Steven go. So eventually the cops would get the results back and finally get confirmation that what looked like blood was indeed blood. And it was also determined that it was a match for Hillary. When the cops went to arrest Steven, they found him in his garage frantically cleaning his car. He had the seats removed, he had buckets of soapy water, and fans were going, and the cops came and found him scrubbing the shit out of his car. So, I mean, obvious. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. But the cops furthered their search after arresting him, and during this search, they found socks, a hunting knife, shirts, and a baseball hat, all covered in blood. So what actually happened that night was Hillary went to the party in the woods with every intention of staying over her friend's house, but as the night went on, she decided for whatever reason that she didn't feel like staying out and wanted to go home instead. This is when Steven asked her if she wanted to ride home. And even though she really wasn't friends with him, he was kind of more of an acquaintance. She, at least thought he was someone who could probably get her home safe because she knew, he was around, but they just weren't close.
I got you.
Yeah, those, you're kind of drawn when you're, I don't know, I feel like when you're in, high school and stuff, even though you're hanging out in a big crowd, you have, your people within that crowd.
Yeah, there's always the closer, handful of yous. That's the bigger, yeah.
Right. So, Steven and her just weren't that close. But, again, she's like, he hangs out all the time. I know of him, who he is. So, there's no harm. At least that's what she thought. And now I'm not sure how long he drove for before he took out this large hunting knife that his parents so lovingly bought him for his birthday. And he just basically, from what they could gather, he just started stabbing her. He stabbed her a total of 13 times, with most of the stabs being in her head. He also stabbed her major organs, and then he slit her throat. Seriously fucking vicious. And
you gotta stab somebody hard to stab them in the head.
Yeah. It was a huge hunting knife.
That's crazy.
So after Stephen murdered Hillary, he ended up dumping her body in a field of weeds located behind a subdivision that just so happened to be located behind homes in the $1 million range, which it's like that like
way back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
And then what happened was one day there was just these two people, they were out for a walk, and they ended up stumbling upon the beaten, stabbed, and decomposing body of 13-year-old Hillary Norskog. So after Stephen was arrested, he was granted bail. And since his family had money, paying $100,000 to get their son out of jail really wasn't a lot for them to spend. So they did it, obviously. While on bail, a lot of people said that Stephen didn't even have any restrictions, and he essentially went on living his life uninterrupted. His parents still left him alone all the time, and he continued to throw parties. Apparently, the people in town were also not so nice to the Files after this, and, I mean, rightfully so.
I wonder why.
And as a result of the negative backlash, they were faced with Stephen's parents asking the judge, I read that wrong. So as a result of the negative backlash they were faced, Stephen's parents asked the judge if they could move, to Indiana to get back to some type of normalcy. So that move would be over state lines, obviously, and that actually violated the condition of Stephen's bond, but for whatever reason, an exception was made and the request was granted. Fucking bullshit.
That's crazy.
Fucking bullshit is what that is. Money. So when Marcia found this out, she was like, fuck that, and did such a badass move. For real, I bow down to this woman, because she proceeded to go to the neighborhood they were moving to and decided to tell pretty much everyone she could just who the Files were and what Stephen had done. And because of this action, she actually ended up getting in trouble with the courts and was told that if she persisted, she would be held in contempt of court. So she could have essentially gotten arrested. But, so she stopped her crusade, but she did make people aware enough that the town was in a complete uproar over the Files moving in. And because of this, the Files ended up putting in another relocation request, and this time also requested that the address remain private. Shockingly, this request was actually granted as well, with the records of their relocation being completely sealed, meaning that not even the victim's family had any clue where Stephen was living.
That's crazy. So, theoretically, he could have been, around the block.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
How fucked up. And if it, because obviously, I feel like at this point, he's out on bail, and he hasn't been convicted of anything. He's only, charged, but it's been proven that her blood was found in his car, so clearly, and they found all of that stuff, so clearly they know that he did it. And the fact that you're not going to even let the family, he could go after the family. And it was just Marcia in the house, because she had older kids. And so essentially Hillary was kind of it was basically just them two, because she was a younger, half sister in a sense from a new relationship. So Marcia had kids from another marriage, and then she ended up having Hillary with another person. So it was essentially just her and Hillary. All her other kids were grown up. So now with Hillary gone, it was basically just her.
Yeah.
So who's to say this kid's not gonna just wander over and attack her as well, when he killed her?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's fucked up.
And she has no means of protecting herself because she doesn't even know where the fuck he is. That's really fucked up.
That's horrible.
So the Files ended up relocating more than 30 miles from the Palace Park area, and they actually ended up settling in Crete, Illinois, because obviously now this information is out. So, but at the time that was not, known. Nobody knew where they were. And this is another thing too. This just shows you the level of what money can get you, because this shit was so hush hush that the purchase of the new home was done quietly through their lawyer, and it was done in cash. So since their new neighbors had no clue who had just moved in, many of them actually thought that they were in the witness protection program, because they kept to themselves and rarely showed their faces. Their neighbors.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say their new neighbors, when they were interviewed, they were I think it was outside of one party, they threw. They hardly ever heard them, saw them, nothing. So, I mean, at least somewhat smart to lay low.
Yeah, because you don't want to draw attention to yourself, but
I mean, your kid seems like such a dick. I'm surprised he didn't still...
You would think that there would be attention just because.
Yeah, your kid's a douche.
You said it.
So the File kids, again, consisted of 3 kids in total. There was 2 boys and 1 girl, with Stephen being in the middle. Which, I mean, middle child syndrome, that's what that's... No, kidding, I'm kidding. Stephen and his older brother, Roger, who was 19 at this time, were apparently super close, and when diving into Stephen's past, it became apparent that Roger was actually there and partaking right along with Stephen in some unsavory actions. The 2 would often get into trouble together, and they were known for picking on and bullying other kids. Of course, their parents never paid attention to this. You know, ultimately, the brothers got away with being dickheads scot-free. That's the most I can say on that. That's as far as I'm going to go. There's just, like, a lot of shit reporting about both of them, and then, like, instead of holding them accountable, like, adjustments are just made, so then that way it's more of, like, avoiding dealing with them. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
I think it does.
Okay.
I think it does.
Okay. So, let's do a little recap. Hillary was murdered on July of 1993. And by October of that same year, Stephen gets released on bail and is now living in a new home in a new town, free to essentially do what he wants. And honestly, for someone who is a major suspect and pretty much they're convinced is the killer for violently and maliciously murdering a 13-year-old girl, I have to say his life has not been inconvenienced in the slightest. And
doesn't seem like it.
Shocking.
Doesn't seem like it at all.
Shocking. And now we are going to go and jump ahead to March of 1994. So St. Paddy's Day to be exact. Stephen's parents are out for the night at a St. Paddy's Day party, and at home is Stephen, Roger, and their younger sister. I believe she is 14 at this time. She will remain nameless. But it's just the 3 siblings, home alone again, like they're used to. And when the parents returned home, they pull up to their house to see 6 squad cars, 2 ambulances at the property. And 2 ambulances at the property. Inside, their oldest son, Roger, 19, was laying in his bedroom, on his bedroom floor, beaten with a baseball bat, and his throat had been slashed. Also in the house, and the reason the police were even there, is their youngest child, 14-year-old daughter, who is alive but far from well. She unfortunately has been sexually assaulted. There is only one person to locate, and that is Stephen File. So where the fuck is he? Stephen, if you haven't figured it out yet, is actually the culprit and is the one who caused the devastating scene that the Files and the police walked into that day.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, this story's got a real ass on her.
Fuck, man.
Yeah. So the details about what actually occurred after Stephen's parents left for their party are not entirely clear, but what we do know is that a little after 7 a.m. on that following day, police received a call from the home, and on the other end is a young female asking for them for help. When the police arrived, the young female had been raped, and this is when she tells them that the person who assaulted her was her older brother, Stephen. It is at this point when the police discover the severely beaten and deceased body of Roger in his bedroom. With Stephen nowhere in sight, police figure out very quickly that he clearly fled the scene, and they also discover that with him, he took his father's shotgun and 2 rifles, which is concerning because no one knows what his state of mind is, so as of now, you can only assume he is armed and dangerous. Several hours go by, and this whole time, Stephen is pretty much driving around trying to figure out his next move, and he eventually realizes he has nowhere to go, and he is completely out of options at this point. So when he realizes this, he decides he's going to drive to Village Hall. Inside is the mayor, and as he is sitting in there doing, mayor things, he hears a knock on the door. when he opens the door, there is just this young man standing there in a Metallica t-shirt saying he needs to speak to someone and that he thought he might
90s.
be... Right? I thought the same
90s.
thing. Every time I saw a Metallica t-shirt or I would write about it or read it, I go, Metallica breath.
So fucking 90s. It's amazing. I love it.
So he's standing there and he says that he needs to speak to someone and that he thought he might be in some type of trouble. With this, the mayor calls the police and Stephen is arrested once again. This time, Stephen wasted no time and provided authorities a full confession for beating his brother with a baseball bat and then taking a meat cleaver and slashing his throat. Vicious. However, I could not find anything about the rape of his younger sister, but he was charged with 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault. So whether he confessed or not, he clearly did it and was being charged for it. I just find it weird that I couldn't find anything about him confessing to it. It only discusses, everything I found was him only discussing or confessing to his brother. Nothing about the sister.
That's really weird.
Yeah. And just to recap...
That stuff's usually, it's not like it should be hidden for any reason, right?
No, because, yes, she is a minor, but as long as she's out of it... That's what I'm saying. As long as all that stuff's out of it, if he confessed or not to it, would still be in it, or if he denied it, would still usually get a mention.
Charged with it, so you'd figure there'd be mention of
whether he confessed or denied,
backing up the charges that have been thrown at. I don't know.
Well, she obviously can identify him.
No, I know that, but not being able to really find any details on.
Whether he confessed or not?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, okay, yeah. We're talking about the same thing then. I thought you were talking...
Yeah, sorry, I drifted a little.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about something completely different. I was like, where are you going? We do know the details. She told the details.
I went somewhere.
But no, yeah, I found that very weird too, that he was and a lot of things was very much about him confessing about the brother, but nothing about the sister. Nothing about what he did to the sister. I just found it weird. Because then, usually if there's not a confession, then there'd at least be a denial. Because in the interrogation, they're going to bring that up. Tell us about what happened with this. When did that happen? Tell us about your sister. What happened to your sister?
Yeah.
So you would have to say no or deny or I'm not going to plead. I plead the fifth. There would have to be something. I couldn't find anything.
It's weird.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. So, just to recap real quick again, Stephen stabbed and slashed the throat of 13-year-old Hillary back in July 1993. So now, 8 months later, while out on bail for murdering a 13-year-old, he ends up beating his brother with a baseball bat, slashed his throat as well, and then in addition, he ends up sexually assaulting his little sister. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's like a fucking nightmare. And the whole thought of it to me is just completely maddening. It sounds like a movie that is... it's too much.
Yeah, it sounds like this would be actually an episode of Law and Order SVU.
Like a Criminal Minds or something.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So up until this point, his parents were behind him, and supported him actually 100%. Whether they truly believed he was innocent, for killing Hillary or not, to the public, they would not waver, and in their loyalty, and they completely supported him. They showed up, honestly, to everything with him, with court and everything. They were constantly behind him. They were like, no, our son's innocent, the typical, he wouldn't do this. And, after the recent acts, obviously, of what he had committed, they just could no longer, be the two pillars for him that they once were. And, honestly, how could you be at that point?
Yeah.
There's no words.
No.
You just can't even... I just don't even know how you look at your son the same.
I wouldn't be able to, I don't think.
It's hard. And you don't know until you're in that situation. But I just feel like for the sake of their daughter...
He's a fucking savage.
Yeah. Just awful. And Stephen did end up writing a note to his parents where he loosely recounted what had happened to his brother. Still no mention of the sister, but it sounds like he brushed over the details and casually wrote that him and his brother were hanging out drinking and they began to argue, so he killed him. He also added in this note that I now know I am guilty of 2 murders. He also seemingly committed both murders with no motive. At least he has never shared a real reason for why he did them. So with this statement, it becomes blatantly obvious that the second murder he is referring to is Hillary's. Up until now, he's never said anything.
That's crazy.
It's just so blasé.
Yeah, how, emotionless.
And he was 17 when he committed Hillary, when he attacked Hillary and killed her. And I'm pretty sure by the time this is all happening with his brother and the sister, I'm pretty sure he's 18. He had a birthday or something. I'm pretty sure he's 18 at this point. But still, so callous, so nonchalant, just yeah. Now I'm guilty of 2 murders.
Yeah, how could you be, I don't get how you could be so, whatever.
Yeah, for somebody who started showing behavioral issues at a young age.
I don't know, I just can't wrap my head around being that.
Yeah.
You know.
So, at his first hearing, for murdering his brother, as he was being walked in, a reporter asked him if he had anything to say. And his response was to stick up his handcuffed hands in the air and gave them the double middle finger to everyone. So, he seems super remorseful.
Enough said.
Yeah. And Stephen was convicted of both murders and was sentenced to 100 years for one and life without parole for the other. So essentially he got 2 life sentences and will remain in prison until the day he dies. This is another weird thing. He is also labeled for needing to be on the sex offender registry. However, there is nothing listed in his offenses about sexually assaulting anyone. And again, if you got 2 life sentences without parole, you're not getting out. Why would that label be on there? Isn't that weird? Or is that just
That's probably just a technical or a technicality or something. If you are charged with some kind of whatever, then you got to be put on.
Oh, God.
It's probably an automatic thing, you know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay.
Although I don't know, because don't people always get busted for not registering? So I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. The only point to be to put that label on there is to be when this guy gets released. So I was gonna say maybe that's a safety precaution for if, God forbid, something happens where if he ends up appealing, he gets resentenced, and he does end up, getting parole, and then he is eventually paroled. That label is still there for them to be okay, he's got to make sure he registers, Yeah. Because I could see that getting lost if, years go by, and then he ends up, shit gets changed, and he ends up somehow managing to get parole.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
But when I first read that, I was I don't get it.
Yeah, because if you're going to die in prison with the...
Yeah, because it's just a label. It's not saying he's a sex offender. There's nothing on his record about being a sex offender or anything. There's just a label. When you look at his record, there's just a label that says, he needs to go on the sex offender registry.
That's crazy.
So I just thought it was odd. I've never seen that before. When I look at those, I've never seen just a label or an asterisk hey, just a heads up, guys, for somebody who's not going to get out of prison when they do, if they do, right? So where was I? Stephen is still serving his time. While 2 families are completely destroyed and pretty much left to pick up the pieces, learning how to cope and move on with what they've experienced. And in addition to this, there are also 2 people who lost their lives in such brutal ways, it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around it. And it's one of those 2 where there's, again, the red flags. When you look back at his past, there was plenty of people that were his friends and stuff that were saying with that hunting knife, apparently people were saying, like, I don't know, apparently or allegedly, whatever you want to say, that he had, like, a history of, like, hurting animals and stuff. And then they...
That's never good to hear.
And,
that's never
like,
thing.
your son's hurting animals, but then you choose to gift him with a hunting knife of that size. Like, the thing was huge. And you decide to gift him that for his 16th birthday. Like, that's, people were questioning that. And
that's a little weird. That's a little weird.
And then what he would do, he would be like that obnoxious friend that would then, like, he would always have it around, like, underneath his car seats, and he would just whip it out and be like, like, and just be...
Tension.
Yeah, and then at one point, there was one friend that also mentioned that he randomly was like, wouldn't it be cool to, like, kill somebody with this or something like that, which it's like...
No, it wouldn't be.
And I also feel like, though, it's hard to decipher that shit, because some kids are just assholes, and they like that shock value shit, and you're just like, whatever, they would never do anything. You just, like, I feel like
some
as a...
fucking idiot running his mouth.
Exactly. I feel like as a kid, you're just like, you're not gonna do anything. Like, shut the fuck up. You're still a loser. Like, I feel like a lot of when kids who are friends with kids like that, everyone is laughing at you, not with you, and you just don't get it, that you're, like, the brunt of the joke. And I feel like that's what he was. Like, I feel like all his friends were like, he's just a loser, and he's just, like, crazy, and he just says things that, like, everybody writes it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I don't know, because, again, it's like retrospect. Was there... Obviously, I guess there was more of a serious tone to it, because it doesn't seem...
I don't know. You see, kids starting to fuck with animals. That's just like...
Well, yes, that is actually a red flag. That I would agree with.
I mean, forget everything. Fucking with animals.
Yes, that's the only red flag.
Fires and shit. Like, come on.
I agree with that one. That's a major, especially when you're like, when you're old enough. Like, once you hit, honestly, once you're like 4 and up, damn well.
When you hurt something.
That, like, choking a dog is hurting it. So, that's an actual legitimate, I say, yes, red flag. But all the other behavior...
Yeah, the other stuff, whatever.
Can be chalked up to stupid. Just stupid, loser, pathetic, shock value, teenager thinking he's cool.
Jerk-off fucking nonsense.
Yeah, so it's just scary, because when, I don't know, it's just scary, because you just never know. You just never know. And, like, for her to just completely be like, oh, he's always around, he's so unassuming, like, whatever, like, who wouldn't take that ride home?
Yeah, that's true.
Because he wasn't a stranger.
Yeah.
And since he hasn't given any motive for it, it seems like he was unprovoked. It doesn't seem like he, like, tried to do something and she was like, get the fuck away from me.
It seemed like he genuinely wanted to know.
Just wanted to kill her.
Yeah.
Or somebody. Just wanted to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Because even the motive, like, I honestly, with the brother, like, maybe, like, oh, we got into an argument. I don't even know how much I believe that. Like, we got into an argument, because then it's like, okay, now you're trying to make it seem like, oh, he made me angry. So you're blaming him pretty much for getting you angry to the point that you had to kill him. And then that doesn't... Like, what about your sister?
What kind of an argument leads to somebody grabbing a fucking meat cleaver, like, with your brother? Like,
yeah.
Like, fucking meat cleaver. Jesus Christ.
It's next level. It's just an escalation that's crazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't match. It doesn't match. Like, how do you go from one to the next? I don't know. I think I'm just, like, talking around in circles now, because this case is just, like, mind-blowing. Not to mention that he never should have even had the opportunity to attack his siblings, because he shouldn't have been out on bail. I'm sorry, when blood matches in your fucking car to the victim and you find a knife, you find the weapon, you find the clothes he wore, why are you even giving this kid bail?
Because you got good-ass attorneys, that's why.
That's true. It all comes back to the money. All right.
Good attorneys.
Sorry. I get angry with this shit, and I think I just talked that one to death, so I apologize. But that concludes this awful story. Again, I think it seriously sounds like a freaking movie, and I think it's truly mind-blowing. But it is time now then, moving on to our shithead of the week, to be picked up from that shithead of a story. I feel like he's a shithead of the year. Adam, who do you have for us?
So I got this chick named Tatiana from Lincoln, Nebraska, about a year ago. 2nd-degree assault. So it is kind of serious charges, but it's kind of funny.
I was going to say, your tone is telling me that it's not serious. Or is this an awkward laugh, an uncomfortable laugh? What's going on here? I find
terrible things funny. So it was like
oh, that's great.
12 a.m. Cops get a call and they respond to it. They get a call, they respond. They find 2 women were beaten. One of them apparently punched the other one, and then the other one went to grab this chick off of her, and she ended up getting hit and lightly stabbed. She got lightly stabbed under the eye.
Oh!
It sounds like it was a 1/2-inch like slice, not necessarily.
Oh,
like
so not stab. I'm thinking like
it's more like a slice. It sounds like. And so the reason for all of this, right? Is these 2 chicks went over to this girl's house. They were all hanging out.
So it's 3 girls.
3 girls.
Are these women or girls?
Yeah, they're women. They're in their 20s, 30s.
Oh, okay.
So they were all hanging out, and the 2 say to the one whose house it is, like, yo, this place is kind of gross. Like, it's kind of dirty.
Wait, where is this?
In Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
Which turns into her punching. Being accused of punching this chick in the face and
so it turns into a real brouhaha.
And the cops apparently, quote, it said that there was, quote, an extreme amount of dog duty and dead mice in the basement.
Oh,
now, I don't know how you define extreme amount of dog shit, but it had to have been pretty fucking terrible.
Oh my god, that mixed with like decaying fucking mice, that has to be so vile. Oh my god, no wonder why those 2 girls are like, this place is gross. I think that's hilarious though. She's like, I have to defend my home.
Don't say my house is dirty, bitch.
Wait, so did the homeowner get her eye sliced, or did one of the girls that...
One of the girls that said the place is gross.
So basically the one chick just like...
Yeah.
She kicked both their asses. Yeah. Teach you to talk about her home.
Yeah.
She means business.
She wasn't fucking around.
No, that is actually surprising. I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that when you said assault, but that actually did end up being entertaining.
Yeah.
That was a pick-me-up.
Yeah.
That was an interesting one. Well then, on that note, thank you for listening, and until next week, make your dash count, and don't be a douche.
And keep your house clean.
Yeah. Oh God, so gross. Bye.